Welcome to the Big Play Tailgate, everybody. Championship weekend in the NFL. A lot to break down, of course, Browns news, and we'll talk about coaching changes. And by the way, what is old is new again in Las Vegas, at least, and we'll get to that as well. Welcome, Ryan Tyler, Scott Pennyman joining me, and, of course, the two Golics. What's better than one Golic, Bob?
Two Golics.
Two Golics.
Tony.
Bob and Gage are here, and we're going to break this all down. The first thing I want to start with, I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. We sat here a week ago, and the one lock I think we all felt going into that divisional playoff round was the Lions.
Yeah.
And now here we are, and the team we talked about for 3 or 4 months is gone. What was your take on that, Bob?
You know, I started thinking about it afterwards, and I got a feeling, and I do this once in a while, I think I got an emotional connection because they've been down for so long, and you saw them coming along like that, and everybody's talking about how it's their year, and I think I emotionally got connected to them. But you know, they're a really good team. Not that day though.
Ryan, were you surprised the way it played out?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could not be surprised. I mean, you looked at them, the number one seed of the NFC, averaging damn near 35 points a game, one of the best coaches in the NFL. But when it comes down to it, Jaden Daniels outplayed Detroit. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's amazing what happens in the 1 year turnaround. You get a new ownership group, you get a new head coach, you get a new OC, you bring in vets like Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, and Austin Eckler, and then you reap the benefits of that in the playoffs with guys who have been there before. Credit to the Washington's defense. They stepped up. Huge shocker, but I'm happy. I'm sad for the Lions, but at the same time, I'm happy. Good faith for the Browns that you can get a turnaround that quick and find yourself in the championship after 30 years.
We're done now. Ryan's covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah, well, let's not forget.
That's amazing.
Let's not forget the Commanders won 4 games last year. I mean, they won 4 games last year, and now they're competing to go to the Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels is incredible. He showed why he deserves to be in the conversation of one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Dan Campbell, I think, has a lot of like the old school coaching mentality that I think he took the best of the old school and mixed it in with the new school, and that's why so many people connect with him. He's really passionate about his players. I think that's why everyone kind of resonated with the Lions this year. The Commanders just outplayed them. I mean, they added Marshawn Lattimore. Let's not forget, before the trade deadline, their defense is strong, the Commanders. All the pieces they added, like Ryan said, Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz, who's going to be going up against his former team this week. Jaden Daniels just proved what we now know to be a fact, in that he is at least top 10 quarterback in the NFL, if not a top 5 quarterback.
Scotty, what was your take?
Well, my take is it's going to suck for guys like Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward to come into the league next year, knowing that the standard has now been pushed up by Jaden Daniels, because the way he's been playing, I mean, it's, excuse me, it's hard to say he's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, right? I mean, just he's played for 1 year, but just the way that he's been able to uplift that entire franchise. I mean, they put great things in place, right? I mean, they have new ownership, Dan Quinn, a head coach who was here in Atlanta, where I'm at, and, you know, he took them to the Super Bowl. Now he has Washington on the doorstep. But when you look at what Jaden Daniels has, he's looking like the most valuable player in the NFL if you include the playoff game. So, yeah, he's really raised the standard for rookie quarterbacks, and that's going to be a hard act to follow for the rookies next year.
Yeah, and let's stay with you, Scott. Bob brought up one of many interesting points to me before the show started, and that is, look at the quarterback still standing. If you ever needed a reminder, further proof that you ain't going to be here until you have that. We've known that in Cleveland for decades. However, it's another stark reminder. Look at the guys still standing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quarterback's league. It comes down to having a difference maker at that position. And I think, as we've seen in these playoffs, having a quarterback who doesn't make mistakes in this position, because when you look at the quarterbacks who are at home right now, all those guys are pretty good quarterbacks, but they made crucial mistakes in their playoff games, whereas the guys who are still alive right now played good, smart football and were able to make plays when their teams needed them. They weren't always great, but they're great when they need to be.
That's a really good point, because, I mean, I think part of why Detroit lost that game, other than Jaden Daniels and the rest of the Commanders just coming out of the gate strong and never letting up the whole game, it's the turnovers. Detroit had three turnovers, and they were at crucial points of the game. They were big game changers. I mean, when the Commanders, when you put up 45 points, you're usually dealing with turnovers, and that was their downfall today. I think because obviously the Detroit offense can score, and they did. They scored 31 points, but at the same time, if you're going to have 3 turnovers in a game, those are the little things that lead to a win or a loss.
You know, if you look at this too, and in fairness to the Lions, who they have a tremendous quarterback as well, but you look at the guys who were still injured going into this game. 5 starters from the season opener on defense that were not in this game. I'm not saying that it would have been different. However, when you talk about the amount of points that Daniels put up and the 4th down plays, you know, you like make a stop.
Yep.
Easier said than done when you're missing all those guys, Bob.
Yeah, look, it sure would have been nice to have Aiden Hutchinson going after Jaden Daniels in that football game. I'm sure if you're Detroit, you know, they really didn't do a good job of affecting the quarterback in that game. And Jaden Daniels, he's so quick and so decisive with how he gets the ball out, and they're very, very quick how they run their offense. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to stop him if you have every defensive piece healthy. But when you have guys down, it's that much harder.
Well, you know, too, and quarterbacks in Cleveland are usually in trouble because we have so much problems with offensive linemen, with injuries and guys going in. We've got a 3rd center in. You've got the right tackle playing left guard, and it becomes tough. Back in my day, we used to beat the crap out of the quarterbacks. And we did it, and we had fun doing it.
Well, and that's a thing, too, because a lot of people that don't know offensive line play. It's not glamorous. I get it, but it's the most important. Other than quarterback, offensive line is the most important position on the field. And like you said, switching around positions, just going from tackle to guard is a big change. And a lot of people think that, like, you play
right
one
tackle,
position,
left tackle is a big change.
Right. It's a big difference. And those are the things, again, that, like, add up.
And I'm not saying the Browns didn't face this, but good teams, playoff teams, make that adjustment. And if you have that elite quarterback, they seem to find a way to at least, you know, dampen a little bit of the hit. If that makes any sense, of having a weaker offensive line. I mean, we saw Lamar Jackson last week bumping into his own lineman, getting out of trouble, throwing a touchdown pass. Right? You're a difference maker.
Right.
Hey, did you like my old man voice?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
No, but when you're an elite level quarterback, like you said, what an elite level quarterback can do is you can make up for everything else not being perfect on the football field. So you don't need great wide receivers. You don't need great offensive linemen, because when you have a difference maker at that position, he can make everything else around him look better than what it really is, including the coaching.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Bob mentioned the Browns. All right, so where do they go from here? Ryan, we're starting with you when the tailgate rolls on. Back here on the tailgate, Ryan Tyler, when you look at the quarterback still standing, and then you look at the guys who at least made a big push to get to this weekend and didn't quite make it, and then you look at our situation here, I mean, what's the answer? I know it's not a simple answer on your part, but what do they do?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, when you look at all the quarterbacks remaining, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, well, what do they have in common? They can move. They can move out of the pocket. They can improvise. They're the magicians. When you need a quarterback in the playoffs, you need somebody that can improvise, get out of the pocket, and make magic happen. And that's exactly what Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes especially have made a living out of. Lamar might be the poster child for that, but unfortunately hasn't got to this point only once in his career, hasn't been to the Super Bowl. Now, what do you do if you're the Browns moving forward? Well, if you fall in love with Cam Ward, or maybe Shedeur Sanders, if he wants to come here or not, that's one thing. Then you take him. You're bringing Kevin Stefanski back to call plays, going back to his offense. If he can identify one that fits that, then I say go for it. Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam already went 0 for 1 with Deshaun Watson. Why not give Kevin Stefanski a chance? You're bringing him back after 3-12. You deserve to see what he can do, because if he doesn't, well, he's gone next year, and you start a new regime. You can go the free agent route, I suppose, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, but at the end of the day, I mean, is that going to push the needle? Maybe not. But also you battle of passing on, quote-unquote, what they love to say these days, generational talents in Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham. I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did, but I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to figure it out.
I was going to say, if you knew the answer to that, you would be getting $20 million a year.
My obvious angst here is you hitting on something that I'm afraid of. And
that was the perfect angst face, by the way.
Almost as good as your old man. my angst here is that I knew you were going to say it. When I hear people saying, well, let's bring in, you've heard Kirk Cousins and now Sam Darnold. And I mean, please. And then, all right, you're a bridge. Okay, well, another bridge. How many bridges? Well, the city of bridges now. I mean, help me, somebody. I know there's no simple cure in the draft. This is where the screw up of Deshaun Watson, as predicted a long time ago, sets you back years.
And as an optimist, let me say this. Maybe it's good. Maybe that we don't have, hey, here's the savior, and we draft him in the first round, or we pay $230 million guaranteed to him. Here's the savior. Maybe we do need to build people.
Bob, did you
Bring
think
them
that
in.
when the Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels, they thought, here's a guy we're going to start early in his career and he's going to be successful?
No,
You didn't think that?
I didn't think that.
I did.
Okay.
I actually did too. I thought
did?
Jaden Daniels coming out of college was the best quarterback coming out of college. That may be a controversial thing, but
I mean, he was great, but
he was a stud,
I never
yeah.
thought about it like that.
Scott, did you think that?
Did I think that we'd be seeing the Jaden Daniels we see right now? No, I don't know how anyone could have really seriously predicted that. If you thought he was the best quarterback coming out over Caleb Williams, I can understand that. I mean, he won the Heisman Trophy last year, so that's reasonable to believe. But I mean, I just think right now, I think Washington got a little bit lucky. I don't think that they even thought that Jaden Daniels was what he has shown in these playoffs and all season long. I mean, I think a little bit of luck is involved too.
Well, yeah, luck certainly is going to be involved in every aspect of the draft process. That being said, you have to get to a certain level of drafting nuance and skill to allow that luck a chance to develop. And that's exactly what the Browns don't have. And right now, I think the draft is terrifying because with all these NIL deals and all these college players making $5-10 million a year in college, I think we're going to see a lot more of like Joey Bosa holding out to sign his contract, things like that. I think that's going to happen a lot. And I think the Browns are going to really struggle with getting one of these top tier talents. I think Shadur Sanders, I think he'll hold out. Travis Hunter might be the exact same way. I am nervous for the Browns drafting process.
And maybe that's what we need. Maybe, like I was saying before, we had a guy, we had the target. He was going to be the savior. He was the one that was going to change everything, and they never did. And so maybe we just need to have a bunch of football players out there. My dad used to say, he goes, I'd rather have a team with guys with heart than talent. And I would say back to my dad, could I have a couple talented guys? And he said, yeah, just two. Just one. That's
Hey,
all.
you know, and I hate to bring this up, Bob, but I don't. With the Buckeyes win over your Irish in the national championship, can we pump the brakes a little bit on Will Howard, please? Can we absolutely, please? I mean, Scott, I know you put this out on social media. Can we just stop for a second, please? You can be effective on the national championship scale in college, and that may not translate. Whatever all your skill sets are, may not be quite good enough at the next level, please.
Well, think about Cardell Jones in 2014. That was the last time the OSU won the national championship. What did Cardell Jones came to the league as a second? Was he second round? He might have even been later than that. I can't remember.
Yeah, he was like a fourth round pick, maybe fourth or fifth round. Cardell Jones was.
So he came off. I mean, obviously he was a fifth-year senior, but he was coming off of winning a national championship. Came to the league. I don't think he ever started. I don't know if he might have started a couple of games, but he was definitely never a perennial starter for any team. And he's been out of the league for several years now. And that kind of goes to show, like you said, performance in college obviously is where you're going to determine who you're going to draft. That being said, it's not always going to translate.
Yeah.
Look, I know I talked about this, like you said, on my social media page. What Will Howard's success reminds me of, I covered the University of Georgia for the last couple of years. Stetson Bennett, who was the quarterback at the University of Georgia, led them to back-to-back national championships. And Stetson Bennett was the driver of that offense. He wasn't the engine. And what I mean by that is he greatly benefited from the NFL pieces that was around him. I think that's Will Howard, too. I think Will Howard is a competent starting level quarterback. I think he probably projects more as a backup at the NFL level because he doesn't have the qualities to uplift the guys around him. I think those guys, in a way, uplifted him.
Yeah, I agree. Ryan, isn't it fair to say when you look at this, okay, Will Howard produced with Jeremiah Smith and other receivers, and he's going to have that level of talent in the NFL. What he's not going to have are the 20-yard gaps between those receivers and the guys covering those receivers.
Yeah, I think when you look at a case like Will Howard, I mean, the one thing that you want to do when you're drafting a quarterback is you need transferable skills. And yes, Will Howard is a very accurate quarterback. I understand that, but we've seen that before. I mean, Josh Allen, the reason he went so high, even though the concerns with accuracy was you could fix that in the NFL, but he had the intangibles that you can't just teach. Like, that's a natural gift. Will Howard's thrown to 3 Sunday pass catchers that are going to be in the NFL one day. You mentioned the best backfield with Quinshawn and Travion. Defense can't just pin their ears back, right? He's more of a product of the pieces around him. Now, they're going to take a flyer on him in the late rounds, but to overhype his draft stock, people talking about the top 50, second round, even the third round, I think is a bit of a stretch at this point. Yeah, of course, that's a natural. You're in the big stage. You're the most recent news. You're going to be, your stock's going to be trending up at the end of the day. To even consider Will Howard being the Browns' savior, I think is an absolute joke.
Okay, to put a cap on the whole national championship game, which I know, Tony, you felt so sorry bringing that up. Let me just say that I want to thank Joe Montana for inviting me to his the Guinness suite, because at halftime, those Guinness were sweet.
And you needed actually.
I needed them,
I
baby.
need to gauge. Did you get the feeling watching this game? No offense, Irish, but did you get the? I just never thought it was in doubt. I don't care if they're within 10,
No.
1. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the
We
Buckeyes
were
could
winning.
almost- Yeah,
We were winning.
No,
after
they
the first
absolutely. It was pretty clear when you watched that first drive. Notre Dame absolutely shot their wad on that first drive. I mean, they were out of it. The quarterback was throwing up on the sideline. That was it. They had nothing left after that first drive. That was they tried for a first round knockout. It didn't happen. They had nothing left for the rest of the
They
fight.
did make a run for it in the second half. I don't think they looked good, but you know,
Scotty.
That wasn't a threatening run. At no point in that late run did I believe that they were going to win that football game. None.
I think Marcus Freeman has really solidified his spot as a tremendous coach, but he's sitting there like, you know what we'll do? We'll grind it out.
I think my judgment was impaired.
You're not going to
because
grind it out because they're going to give the ball to Henderson. He's going to go 60, and now boom, you're down 10 again.
I think my judgment was impaired because of the sweet Guinness.
What's actually fun is I went to Ohio State for college, and obviously that was the whole thing on Monday. So
yeah, no kidding.
All right, much more to come. We may even get into Ryan Day in just a little bit, but who's the NFL MVP now that the votes are cast? We'll talk about that and more when the tailgate rolls on. Back here on the tailgate, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley are your final candidates for the MVP award. And Ryan, is it a foregone conclusion that as great as Saquon was this year, it's going to be a quarterback?
Well, first and foremost, a lot of people in Cincinnati listening are very upset you left off Joe Burrow on that list. Don't care. He shouldn't win. It didn't get in the playoffs. But to your question.
Fair enough.
By the way, don't go to his house.
Yes. Very hot girlfriend Olivia Pontone will be there. Or I guess in that case, they listed her as an employee of Joe Burrow's.
I did forget Burrow. You're right.
But Saquon
Just
Barkley.
because you pay her doesn't mean she's employed.
Take it up with Joe Burrow. But to Saquon Barkley, yes, absolutely deserves not the MVP, but he'll be the offensive player of the year. Same way you saw Christian McCaffrey get it last year. Bringing back the running position to being cool again. But when you look at it, a quarterback hasn't won the MVP since 2012 and Adrian Peterson. And if Christian McCaffrey didn't win it last year, Saquon Barkley's not going to win it this year. That's just the way it goes. It's a quarterback award. Get over it. He'll have his hardware and potentially win a ring.
yeah,
You went to school with Burrow, didn't you?
I was in classes with Joe Burrow at Ohio State. Yeah, I had several classes with him.
Did you say, man, you're going to be good?
That is yeah, for
It's
sure.
going to be good. You just have to get out of
Yeah,
here.
you just got to go somewhere else, and then you'll be fine. But no, I think what I think is interesting about the MVP race, obviously, I think it's coming down to Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I don't think there's any argument between those two right now. I'm leaning toward Josh Allen. I think it's very interesting that Lamar Jackson is one of the finalists for the Offensive Player of the Year. Does that tell you something? Is the AP saying something by putting him as one of the finalists for the Offensive Player of the Year? Yeah. I think so. I think Josh Allen.
What does it tell you that he's not getting MVP?
I think the fact that he's even in the finals, a finalist for Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, I was leaning toward Josh Allen anyway, but to me that solidifies my pick of Josh Allen winning this MVP this year. And it was close for Lamar. I think he has an MVP caliber season. I just think this has been Josh Allen's year, and it could still be all the way to the Super Bowl.
See, I was wondering, Scott, it's like if you win that position-only trophy in college, they're basically telling you, hey, you had a great year, but you ain't winning the Heisman.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like the Maxwell Award, right? And then the Heisman, the guy who normally wins the Maxwell doesn't get the Heisman Award. So, yeah, sometimes I wonder, are these awards kind of altered a little bit, right? Like we just saw Lamar Jackson lose and fumble in that game. And now I wonder, are they like, maybe we should switch this up and give it to Josh? He's still playing, But, yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good feeling Josh Allen will win the MVP. I think a little bit of it is Lamar fatigue. He's won 2 of them. Josh Allen hasn't won 1 yet. And I think for what Josh had to do this year for his team after losing a lot of his targets like Stephon Diggs and all those guys and still have his guys right here with an opportunity to go to Super Bowl and have the season that he had, I think the pick is Josh Allen.
I stick with Lamar for a second, Scott. I disagree with people that say that his luster is a little bit tarnished because he didn't get to the Super Bowl again. I mean, I don't buy that, but if I'm going to keep sitting here and saying that it all starts with the quarterback and you got to be elite, kind of goes against my argument, doesn't it?
Yeah, everyone coming out of that game, it's easy to look at Mark Andrews, right? And the drop he had at the goal line and then the fumble he had earlier in that game. But when you look at it plain and simple, Lamar Jackson had 2 turnovers. One of those led to a touchdown, was directly. And when you look at how the game ended, they lost by just a couple points. So if he doesn't give up that fumble in that moment and they take it all the way back to the 10, they win that football game. In a game that we knew was going to be so tightly contested. We knew coming into it, we talked about it last week. This was probably the most evenly matched of the 4 games last week, as far as it was pretty much a coin flip. In a game that is going to be that tight, you could ill afford any sort of bad possessions, especially from your MVP level quarterback. He's got to be at his best when it matters most. And once again, in the playoffs, in a elimination game, Lamar was not at his best when they needed him to be at his greatest.
But he took him down the field when he had to, and he put him in position to tie that game, and then as one of the best receivers in football drops the ball.
He wouldn't have had to be in that position if he didn't fumble in the first or second quarter and led to a touchdown. They were in that position because Lamar Jackson's mistakes early helped him get in that position.
Let me just gauge. I know you're going to go, but all right, I'm going to say that. But Brett Favre would throw the pick, and we all knew it. But then Brett Favre would come down at the end of the game and make up for the pick. I mean, so you can't say that about Lamar Jackson? That look, he made a mistake, but here he comes. He's taking him right down the field.
Well, I mean, I think that's why the Ravens. I mean, no one on the Ravens is going to be blaming Mark Andrews for what happened because, as a player, intellectually, you know this. You know, games are decided throughout, obviously, all 60 minutes of the game.
The only one you blame is a kicker.
Exactly. That's the only one. Yeah, only one deserving there. But no. But obviously, I feel awful for Mark Andrews. I can't even imagine the scrutiny. I think the Bills have
the personal. I think personally to him.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
He is not being blamed by a single member of the Ravens locker room. I can absolutely guarantee that. This is part of the game, and like Scott said, there are several instances throughout the game where they could have pulled away. They could have made up those. I mean, they lost by 2 points.
Bob, was Mark Andrews wrong to not speak to the media after the game?
No. I've got no problems
I
because
disagree.
You disagree.
I agree with you, Gage.
I think you have to talk with the media. I think it sucks, and I think you have to own up to it though.
If you are not
it's part of the job,
if you're not prepared for it, you need to talk to them by law, by NFL law. You got to talk to them. But I just think that if you're not prepared for it, if you're emotionally just still conflicted on the whole thing, want to go in and start sobbing in front of these guys. Eventually, you got to say, my bad. I dropped the ball. It's I'm responsible for this.
Yo, Bob, I went back and looked at a clip. Ernest Biner talked after the fumble. I'm just saying.
Okay. Wow, you saw a clip already?
Well, it reminds me of Cam Newton too. Like after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Cam Newton didn't talk to the media after he didn't die for that ball in 2015 in that Super Bowl, and I've always kind of resented him for that. I think it's a weak move. I think I get it. I totally understand as like a human being at an emotional level, but it's part of the job. You're the quarterback. You make the most money on the team. You are expected to do the most. When you screw up, you have to be able to go in front of the media, say, "Hey, this is a team loss, but I accept my position in how this went down."
I think my opinion is skewed a little bit because I like talking to the media a lot. For sure. And people would come up and they'd go after a game, Howie won't talk to us. And I said, well, I'll talk to you for him.
I'm trying to think of the Cam Newton. Help me out here. They're all running together. Was that the one where he did start to talk and then they put the other team too close to him and he could hear the questions and he just walked out?
Yeah, it was like really loud. It was like really loud in the background for the Super Bowl. I think they were on the other side of the wall and they were celebrating and stuff. And they heard all of the celebrating and cheers. And he's talking about why they just lost. Yeah,
your point's well taken, Gage. I mean, you still, as an NFL quarterback, you got to get through it. You have to deal with it. That's the way it is. Mark Andrews is tremendous, but if you're going to talk about all the touchdown catches that you made throughout the season and then you drop that pay, whatever, you got to stand up and you got to face it, even for 5 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess I was trying to defend him a little bit, but you're right. I mean, you got to get out. The more you don't talk about it, the more they want you to talk about it.
And knowing him, I guarantee you he regrets not talking to the media.
Yeah.
I guarantee looking back, he wishes he talked to the media.
He seems like that kind of guy that just would like to get it all up front. And
for sure.
But like I said, where it happened, the time it happened, and the emotion of it, I think it just it was a little bit much for him at that point.
Sympathy, definitely have sympathy for the guy.
Hey, look, I worked in TV for I was going to say, Tony, I worked in TV for a lot of years. Every director wants to talk after a really good show, but when he punches the wrong video throughout the course of the show, he doesn't really want to talk after the show.
Right. Those meetings are called postmortems, and you always get together after doing that. Boy, that was great. You see the size of that fire. Wow, can't get enough of that. And then all of a sudden, when two tapes don't roll, they scatter, and that's it. We don't have time for this stuff.
We don't have time. We have meetings to go to.
All right, guys, get your picks ready. We'll be back. Back here on the Tailgate, Commanders at Eagles here. Commanders are a great story. I always root for stories, and so I'm rooting for Jaden Daniels here, big time. Gage, you want to break out the rookie stat here?
Yeah, so I mean, a rookie starting quarterback hasn't made it to the Super Bowl. A rookie starting quarterback has not won a Super Bowl. That said, I think we need to temper expectations here. I think Jaden Daniels, his story is great, and I am actually, just to put it out there, I'm taking the Commanders over the Eagles. I don't have faith in the Eagles after the last several years. I just don't. Jalen Hurts twisted his knee against the Rams. Who knows how that's going to play out? I just know that he only threw the ball a couple of times after he injured his knee. I think it was three pass plays. Obviously, you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. That's going to cover a lot of your messes. But if the Commanders can shut down the run game of the Eagles, even slow it down, they're not going to shut it down. Who are we kidding? But if they can slow it down to a point, then the Commanders, I think, are going to take this game. A.J. Brown hasn't really been much of a contributor this playoffs. Devontae Smith hasn't really been much of a contributor. The Eagles have been a run-first offense ever since acquiring Saquon Barkley, and they have to stick with that if they're going to win, obviously. But if the Commanders, who have, I think, the 13th ranked run defense in the NFL, at least during the regular season, if they can manage to keep him to even just a couple of touchdowns, even if he scores 2 touchdowns, 150 yards, I think the Commanders are going to come out on top of it.
So you're going to not just take the 6 points, because the Commanders are 6-point dogs, but you're going to take them to win.
I'm taking the Commanders to win. Maybe I'm a little too excited about how they handled the Lions, but I really had a lot of faith in the Lions. Jaden Daniels made a believer out of me.
Do you have some bitterness towards the Eagles that we don't know about?
I do wish I wanted them to beat the Chiefs in a Super Bowl a couple years ago. Other than that, though,
they let you down. Okay,
it's fine. They let me down.
Yeah, I'll take the Commanders to cover, but I think the Eagles win this game when I look at it. I mean, outside of Jaden Daniels being better than Jalen Hurts, and maybe you could say Dan Quinn is a better head coach than Nick Sirianni. I'm not a fan of Nick Sirianni, but at the end of the day, he's more of I'm trying to think of a term, like the manager, the CEO type level of that team. You have Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore who are getting things going on offense and defense. And outside of that, listen, the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty much better in every other aspect of their lineups. You're playing in Philadelphia. I think this is their 4th straight game. You're asking a rookie to go win 4 straight road games. 3 in the postseason now. I think it'll be too much. I'll take the Eagles to win, but I'm sad to see the Jaden Daniels story go down this way.
You know what? But one thing that I was listening to you before, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I went, and no, you said you had made a comment about, we were talking about Jaden, and you had said something about he's like a year or two away. Everything he's done this year doesn't point to that. Everything he's done this year tells me and most people that he's going to kick ass.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
In the Super Bowl. I drank the Kool-Aid, yeah. So I wasn't criticizing you.
No, it's okay, but fair enough. So you would take the Commanders and the 6.
I would take the Commanders and 6.
Scott, you're going to love this. So I was looking up the youngest quarterback, because no rookie has ever won a Super Bowl quarterback. I was looking up who's the youngest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. And number 1 on the list was Mike Tomczak from the 85 Bears. And I thought, of course, when you think of the 85 Bears, you think of Mike Tomczak. Of all the players that are on the team.
Was he on
you wouldn't think of Jim McMahon. You would think of Mike Tomczak.
Was he in the Super Bowl shuffle?
I don't believe he was. And that should be the gauge.
He was there, but he was behind the fridge.
Yeah.
Scotty, what do you got here? Commanders plus 6?
Commanders plus 6. I'm going to go ahead and still take the Eagles. I think they'll win by more than a touchdown. I think they'll win by 2 possessions. I heard some of the comments here that were made about them as far as, Nick Sirianni. Him not liking Nick Sirianni. I don't think I've heard anyone like Nick Sirianni. He probably has the most punchable face of any head coach in the National Football League. But no, I like what the Eagles are. I think they'll run the ball well. Jalen Hurts seems like he's always a little banged up, but it never really stops him from playing well. They'll run the football. They'll play Eagles football, and people forget they have a really good defense too. I like them to win this game. Let's say like a 24-13.
Okay, that's a big wow. All right, 11.
Yeah.
When I look at this, you hear people say, well, the Eagles had that major advantage over the Rams because it was a blizzard in the second half. And I always think, well, how many of those guys on the Eagles are from Philly?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, I know for a fact Jalen Carter and the other defensive lineman Davis, they played at the University of Georgia. Half their defense play at the University of Georgia. They haven't seen a blizzard before. That's not going to help them. Yeah.
Right, they can't play in the elements. They're from Los Angeles. No, they're not. They're not from Los Angeles. The Rams are not from the team is. The players aren't.
No,
Okay.
no.
I think it's going to be close. The reason, Bob, that I said that, I broke out the stat that no rookie quarterback has
Right.
and I said, well, maybe Jaden Daniels is a year or two away. It just history seems to play out, and I think Ryan made this point about traveling that many weeks in a row. At some point, I'm not saying the game will be too big.
Yeah.
I just think at some point you're asking a lot for this guy who's in his early 20s and has never been in this position to keep doing. Maybe he will. He's that good. Maybe he'll be the first one to do it.
From and going along that perspective, many times I've talked about how a new guy coming into the league, if he fails, like a lot of the Browns quarterbacks have, mentally you get kind of despondent. You start doubting yourself. You start doubting the team, and you don't find a way to make yourself better. Quarterbacks that have success early on, I mean, it's like a genetic code. It's just like, hey, I can do this. And the emotion is a huge part of the game, being able to go out and do these things. And a big thing of knowing, believing that you can go and do it. And I think that Jaden has been thinking about I don't think he's confused at all anymore about whether he can play in the NFL or not.
I mean, go ahead.
No, you go.
You have to be kind of crazy to be a quarterback. Let's just be honest. You have to be kind of crazy. It is an insane position. The amount of knowledge you have to have about football, and then every play you have to be insane, and that comes along with what you just described of keeping that mental fortitude. A lot of these guys coming out of college are used to being the best player on any team they've ever played on. They get to the NFL and a lot of them realize they're a drop in the bucket. And I think that takes a mental toll on a lot of people. I think Jaden Daniels, he's 24 years old. He's old for a rookie. And I have yet to see a crack in his game. I have yet to see a crack in his confidence. I haven't seen, even if he takes with the road games of the rest of the playoffs, I haven't seen a single crack in his confidence. And like I said before, I think maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little too much. I think I'm riding the high of how the Commanders took out the Lions. But I just believe in Jaden Daniels. He's made a full believer out of me.
Scott.
I love how we're sitting here saying Jaden Daniels might be a year or two away. He might be a day or two away. I guess
Right.
we'll see.
Good
I'm
point.
going to take the points because the spread's so big. I think the Eagles pull it out. I think
Me too.
Saquon will be in a close game. The difference, if you really want to put it like that, I think it'll be close. I think the Eagles have been there, done it, and I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think they'll get there. But I do like Daniels and the 6 points. All right, the game I'm really looking forward to, especially with the showdown of quarterbacks, but it's much more than that. The AFC Championship when the tailgate rolls on. All right, so it's 6:30 on Sunday at the best venue in the NFL. The Chiefs and the Bills are going to square off again. They squared off during the regular season. The Bills won that game. What'll that mean in this game? A little bit, but not that much. Ryan, kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be the first one to say the Chiefs. I mean, I don't think anybody else is going to say the Bills, maybe, but at the end of the day, it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They can win a game any way they want in any fashion. They dictate every aspect when they step between those white lines. Bills will be no different. It's the playoffs. They're ready, locked, and loaded. They're going to sacrifice a lamb in the basement of Arrowhead like they always do, pull off some black magic spells, and they're going to go to their third straight Super Bowl. And like you said, Tony, probably win it again. It's the greatest dynasty ever compared.
Whoa.
I'm saying a la the Patriots. Maybe they'll pass them one day with Patrick Mahomes, but also real quick, slow down on the GOAT talk. The kid's like not even 30 yet. He'll get there. Let it breathe.
We're going to get to you guys, but I want to address two things. By the way, the line's 2. The Chiefs are giving 2. That's the line we're going with for these picks, but you think they're going to win outright by more than 2?
Yes, I'll take the Chiefs.
A couple of years ago, I'm probably repeating myself, when Mahomes really started this run and they were looking at his age and his skill level and saying, he could actually match or top Tom Brady one day. I'm like, that seems unfathomable. I mean, how could you? And now I'm starting to wonder if he would have three-peat here with his skill set and if he wanted to play that long. That's really what it comes down to. I wouldn't rule anything out. Scotty, what do you got?
So, I'm a big fan of boxing, right? So there was a famous, I guess, beyond a trilogy. They fought 4 times. Manny Pacquiao against Juan Manuel Marquez. And the first two, I think Pacquiao won 2 of the first 3, and 1 was a draw, right? So they fought a 4th time. And Marquez finally caught Pacquiao with that punch and knocked him out cold. I feel like when you've met someone this many times and they beat you that many straight times, just by the law of averages, the other team is going to figure out a way to finally get you at some point. So I feel like this is the Buffalo Bills. I feel like this is their time. It just seemed like it's their season. I don't know how they're going to do it, but regardless of points or whatever, I like the Buffalo Bills to win this game. What's the point spread?
2.
2, yeah. So, I mean, I like them to win by at least 3. I think this is the year when they finally do it, because when you've played someone this many times and they beat you, you have to have figured out something to win.
You know, there's another thing with the situation you were just talking about, having to go against a guy again that's beaten you. There's a thing called the oh crap rule. And a lot of times you go into that 4th game and you're looking at him going, oh crap. A lot of guys,
an apt name.
It is. It's like the old blank screen that they used to throw back in the day. Everybody goes one way, the tight end sneaks back, and as a defensive player, you're running one way and you go, oh, and you have to run back and chase the guy down. I just think that I don't know. I think Josh Allen is great. I think that Mahomes, for some reason, just keeps winning. And as much as I don't want to go against Josh Allen. I got a feeling that I've got to look at Mahomes as doing what he normally does, because if he gets a 3rd Super Bowl in a row, he will be not only a 3-time Super Bowl winner, but he will probably get more commercials than Peyton Manning did, and possibly Shaquille O'Neal.
And that's incredible in and of itself.
It is.
In and of
Especially.
itself. All right, you get the Chiefs. I get the Chiefs. It's going to disappoint me a little bit. I don't live or die with either one of these teams. I really want this to be the year of the Buffalo Bills, and more importantly for their fan base and city. It would almost be, if you take away the talent on the football field and just compare the cities, it would be like the Browns and the city of Cleveland celebrating a Super Bowl. And I really, really want that for the Bills, like I wanted it for Detroit. Until somebody stands on that stage at Arrowhead Stadium holding up a trophy named after the Chiefs founder, I'm not going to believe it. I have to see it to believe it, and I think Mahomes will get it done. Give the 2 points, Chiefs win.
And the big difference is this: you can go to Kansas City and get some KC barbecue or some steaks, or you can go to Buffalo and have chicken wings.
There you go.
Look, I totally understand. Look, I get it, because I grew up a fan of the Cleveland Browns, and Bob would know because he was there. I watched John Elway beat the Browns 3 out of 4 years in the AFC Championship game. So, yeah, it is possible for them to go up there and lose again, too, because sometimes the other guy's just better. But I just feel like history and just the law of averages here is on the Buffalo Bills side.
Here's what I'm thinking.
They weren't better.
So it's kind of like Tony said, until someone proves otherwise, I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes, especially against the Bills. Patrick Mahomes has had Josh Allen's number since they've been in the league. They were both drafted in the same class. I think their rivalry will go down as one of the better ones in recent NFL history. I think and that is if the Bills can step up and win a couple of these games, these important games. That said, I still think that Patrick Mahomes has Josh Allen's number. I can't bet against the Chiefs in good conscience, despite the run the Bills are on, despite the energy that they've been bringing to each and every game, despite the fact that so many people and so many things are pointing to this being their year. The Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes playing arguably the worst season of his career, they've still won 15 games. Yeah. It's hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes, almost to the point where if the Bills do win, I would happily go through a table like Bills Mafia. Happily.
I'll tell you, too, and it might not be a good analogy because neither team had a Patrick Mahomes, although the Broncos had John Elway. But, in Pittsburgh years ago when I covered the Steelers and the Chargers came in with Bobby Ross as the head coach and stunned them on their own field in the AFC Championship game, and the Chargers went on to get slaughtered by the 49ers. And then the next year, the Steelers would go, of course, and lose to Dallas. And then in Denver, the Broncos under Mike Shanahan were on the brink, but Jacksonville came in with Mark Brunell at quarterback and they stun them at Mile High Stadium.
Right.
It can be done on the road, certainly, and there's nothing quite like that silence. It's a really eerie feeling when a road team does that, as you know, Bob. If you go in and do it, it can be done.
I remember that Chargers team. They had Stan Humphries.
Yeah, that's right. Not exactly Mahomes, but they got it done. They got it done, right? So it can't be done until I see it.
And this game, I am 80% sure this game will be going into overtime. I don't know. Something about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen going up against each other, they end up in overtime, and the Chiefs squeak out a win. It's what Patrick Mahomes does, and I think that's going to happen again.
Do you like the most?
Exactly, right. And you know, say what you want about Butker, but he's been a solid kicker.
Are you saying the game is manipulated by the referees to get you to?
I would never suggest something so.
Now, I want to talk about that. It's a great point, and you'll let us into our final segment. We'll be right back.
Yay.
All right, Bob Golick. I got to tell you, some people think the Chiefs get the calls.
Yeah, sure.
You don't buy it.
I think herein lies the problem, and I think more so than anything else. With all the technology we have, we still rely on the referees to make the calls from wherever they are, if they're in position, if they're not in position, if they have a bad angle, if there's a player between the infraction and the referee. But the problem is we have the technology camera-wise to analyze every single play from multiple close-up, slow motion, multiple angles. And so any decision made by a referee is scrutinized. I mean, to the point where they couldn't even argue, okay, I made the wrong choice. I made the wrong call. I mean, you can absolutely find out if it was a penalty or not by watching all the video. And I think that puts a lot of stress on the referees. Not that I care about that, but I think that's
Before you jump in, I know that the video is going to show us everything we need to know from multiple. I get that, okay, but I think people wonder, are the officials predisposed? It's almost like in baseball, if the guy's such a great hitter and he doesn't swing, you call it a ball. I mean, are they predisposed to say, they must have hit Patrick?
But John, here's where I was going with that too, is that if it's old days where you don't have the multiple cameras and everything, the ref makes a call, and then because you don't have all the angles on it, you go, okay. Either you say, hey, he made a good call, or hey, he made a bad call. There's no verification of any of that. So you just kind of let it go. Nowadays, when you see it for yourself with your eyes and however else you see on the screen, the big screen or on your screen, you know that a ref was wrong. Okay, why is he wrong? Why did he call that wrong? He must be for the Chiefs.
I think you make a good point.
I know.
Except for the fact that if that were the case, then why isn't this happening to every team in the NFL?
It is. You still see it.
Maybe you're right. But
I don't know.
Here's my problem with how the Chiefs when the Chiefs win, the NFL makes more money. Let's just be honest. That's how it works. The Chiefs have turned into a huge market team despite being in Kansas City. They have the power of Taylor Swift and and Patrick Mahomes
now Caitlin Clark
and they have the biggest celebrities in the world, and the NFL makes more money when the Chiefs do well. That being said, do I think that they're in the refs' ears telling them to protect Patrick Mahomes specifically? Not necessarily. I think that they are oversensitive about quarterbacks. My biggest problem with referees is the lack of accountability. In my opinion, not just in football, but I think in each and every professional sport, the referees should have a press conference just like the players do after every single game. I think the referees can go over their calls. They can own up to their mistakes. I think that would go a long way in public perception of referees in every single sport, like I said, not just the NFL. And it's getting hard to ignore with the whole Patrick Mahomes thing. It's getting hard to feel like they're not at least doing trending his way.
Could you imagine if the referees had a press conference afterwards and they said, "Oh, I blew it on this one." My God, the fans would be, "Oh, my feelings are verified. He did screw that up. Did he screw it up on purpose, or did it was an accident?"
There's got to be tact,
Scotty.
Well, who knew that really, really good football teams make less mistakes than the teams who aren't as good as them, right? I mean, go figure. They get less penalties because they're a good football team and they make less mistakes. I mean, I don't think that's a revelation. And look, was it the referees that were lining up against the Houston Texans, sacking them 8 times? No, that was the Kansas City Chiefs. Was it the referees that were scoring 12 points on offense? No, that was the Houston Texans. So, I mean, look, you can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Tom Brady beat them 2 times in the playoffs, and the Bengals beat them a few years ago when Joe Burrow went into Arrowhead and beat them there. So if you play good enough football and you have the mindset that you have to overcome some adversity, because there's going to be some adversity. Star players oftentimes get the benefit of the doubt. Jordan did, LeBron does, probably Joe Montana did. It happens, but if you play a good enough football game from start to finish, you can win the game.
Right?
Brady's career was deflating.
Yeah, I don't think I need to put on my tinfoil hat to say that the Chiefs get more calls in their benefit than not. But I think the word you use, Tony, predisposed to when these referees, they know who the star players are. They know when they make a call, whether it's right or wrong, against a guy like Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be more magnified than, say, a random offensive lineman. They understand what comes with that territory. It's frustrating at times, but it's life. As Scott mentioned, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, they're the superstars. They get often the benefit of the doubt. Now, when it happens in times like the playoffs and it's a common occurrence, it can become frustrating. But I think it's more of you're looking at something to complain about when realistically you're just upset that your team didn't win. And I think that's often the case with the Chiefs.
How much time we got?
2 minutes.
2 minutes left. Okay.
But I mean, I hardly doubt that the NFL a few years ago said, okay, look, we're looking for someone to really go for it for next few years. Let's circle this team in middle America right here in Kansas City, and let's let them win every single year. No, I mean, if they were really cheating for somebody, wouldn't they cheat for a team in New York or LA or someone in a big market? I mean, why a team in Kansas City, Missouri?
Well, because
that's what
maybe
they'd like you to think.
Yeah, right. He's on to us. No, maybe it just develops. Maybe over time, after the Chiefs win a couple, maybe, like Ryan was saying, like maybe it just starts to, in the back of your mind, they get the benefit of the doubt.
Can we hear ourselves here how they're planning, how the NFL is planning to manipulate?
Real quick. I want to make
say that.
I want to make this clear though too. The players are who wins and loses the game. It's very rare that a single call is going to. I'm thinking back to like the Saints Seahawks a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I believe it was the Seahawks with that pass interference call. That being said, I think it's less about a Chiefs problem with refereeing, and I think it's a problem about quarterbacks as a whole. I think quarterbacks are too protected. I think the fact that you can fake a slide or act like you're giving yourself up.
You're on my side, baby.
I think that it's a problem with refereeing in terms of protecting quarterbacks. I know they don't want the quarterbacks to get hurt. They're the people that make the money for the NFL, for all the teams. But you have to let them play football at a certain point. So I think it's less about the Chiefs and more about quarterbacks as a whole.
All right, 30 seconds left. This is news. Pete Carroll will be the next coach of the Raiders. Scott, can he make it work? He'll be 74 in September.
Well, I guess if you can elect a 78-year-old president, why not have a 74-year-old head coach, right? So, sure, I guess it can work.
All right.
You can't look at the numbers. You can only look at the performance.
We need another hour for that one. Scott Pennyman, great to talk to you as always. Next week, as we roll towards Super Bowl 59, we'll be back together, but we'll see how we did in these picks. Gentlemen, thanks for everything.